Attention, conversation leaders and workshop facilitators. I feel the need to tell you a little bit about what I've learned in all my years being your workshop wingman. Hi, I'm Hayley, Chief Doodler at Thoughts Drawn Out. I'm all about getting creativity working so I can help you to make your mark. Now I'm saying workshop wingman because I've spent so many years being the graphic recorder or the live scribe or the visual note taker in the room for some amazing conversations. And those conversations have been facilitated by some really amazing people who were incredible at what they did. And I've learned a lot. Sometimes I like to try and take on that role of facilitator myself, and I try to bring to that all of the amazing things that I've picked up over the years. So today in this video, I wanted to share some of those things with you in the hope that I can inspire some great conversation leaders and workshop facilitators amongst you all, and that you can do it confidently and get great outcomes. So this video basically centers around the fact that great conversation leaders are well planned. They rarely step in without having pre-planned through how they want a conversation to go and thought through the possibilities. They are planned but flexible. And it's being planned that allows you to be flexible. And so I have looked through all of these things where they are putting that planning effort into, and I've come up with 5 key areas, and I'm going to talk through those with you today. Great conversation leaders are really clear on the purpose of bringing the people together that they're bringing together. They're really clear on the outputs that they're wanting to create, that the outcomes they need to reach. They're clear if there are particular decisions that need to be made. They get all of this stuff really clear up front. They have clear objectives. They're clear on the purpose. They know why they're doing what they're doing and what they're hoping to get out of the end of it. So having a clear purpose is always the best place to start. And also being able to share that clear purpose with the other participants so that anyone else coming into the room shares the same understanding of the purpose of the time you are spending together. The second thing that great facilitators do and plan in advance is they have thought through how they are going to path the conversation. And what I mean by this is you may have been to a workshop in the past where someone says, okay, we're going to come up with a bunch of ideas for X. Here's some post-its, go for it. We'll come up with a big list. Great, thanks for coming. Out we go. And that was the full plan. There wasn't actually any kind of how are we going to break down the topics within here? Is this one question? Is this many questions? Do we need to have this conversation first before we can come over here and have this conversation? These are the things a great facilitator does. They have considered the path from where we are now to where we want to be, and how are they going to move people through it. So are we breaking this down into a series of smaller conversations? And if we are, what does each of those need to look like? What are the key questions that we are exploring? For what purpose is each piece of this conversation happening? So they know how to path it. They've thought about how they are going to position those questions, knowing that the nuance of language can have a great impact on how that conversation unfolds. They've also thought about how are they going to capture the things that everyone has input in, the ideas that people are coming up with, the suggestions, the thoughts, whatever you are there to create together. How are you going to capture those? Do you have a note taker? Are you going to capture on flip charts? Are you going to have people post-it note? If you are, where are they putting them? How are they putting them? How is that going to make sense? So they've thought through all of this, not just why are we here? What are the conversations we need to have? How do we frame them up? How are we going to capture the outputs so that we are being productive with our time? And an extension of that is thinking through, what do I need to make off the back of this? Is there a document? Is there a particular structure that all of this content needs to go into? And can I be thoughtful about that from the start so that as we workshop this together, we're actually building it into a usable form as we go? Literally crowdsourcing the first draft of your thing together in a room rather than just having a nice conversation. The next thing I would say about great conversation leaders is that they've considered the people in the room. They've thought through who are the best people that we need to have this conversation. And more often than not, they are more kind of inclusive about that and open door about that than you might anticipate. So they recognize that it's better to have the more difficult conversations up front and earlier in a process, earlier in a project, earlier in an initiative, and flush all of that out before you get too far through. So invite those people who you think will have issues and objections early on into your conversation. A richer conversation at the start will lead to a more flowing project that follows. So they might have more people in the conversation or invited to the conversation than you would anticipate. This is not to say it's a cast of thousands for the sake of it. They're not just sending out blanket invitations, hey, everybody that wants to come, because they've been clear on the purpose, clear on what we're there to achieve, clear on the outputs. They've been able to communicate that ahead of time so that the right people know who they are and are choosing to be in the room. And other people can clearly make the choice that they don't need to be there and opt out. That's very hard to do if the purpose and path weren't clear to start with. They also consider what's a great mix of people to make this a rich conversation. Are there additional perspectives that I maybe want to chuck into the mix because it will make for a better conversation? Do I want to have someone with a completely different experience set come in so that we can open our thinking to another way of approaching this problem? Great facilitators also think about who is going to be in the room, how this conversation might play out, and how they can best set the people up in the room for a great conversation. They're not going to be afraid of there being black hats in the room. These are the people who are more likely to play devil's advocate or be the cynics or see the negative side of things. They're not necessarily bad to have in a conversation. You can set them up to have a productive input to the conversation if that's their natural inclination. Maybe you need to engage them ahead of time and assign them a particular role, something you want them to look out for. They can be really great at identifying potential risks that other people might not see, for example. So think about who is in the room and how you can set each one of them up for success. Now the next one is about place. What is the place that this conversation needs to take place in? That was awkward. And when I say place, this might mean a physical place. This might mean an online space. And I think with a great facilitator who is well planned, they are just as capable of holding great online conversations as they are in person. They will have done their homework and their pre-work to make sure it's a great conversation, even though it's online and that people are engaged. So online can absolutely be the place that these things are occurring in. Hybrid is one of those scenarios we often have to work with now, and a great facilitator will understand how to engage and make the most of the time for both people in the room and online if this is the setup that you have. So they've thought through some of those possibilities. Maybe they have a second facilitator to help engage the online people and have a physical presence in the room. They've also thought about what's the right kind of space for this to occur. If this is maybe a heated topic, do we really want to be crammed into a tiny little room that's only just big enough to hold us all? And it might feel like a pressure cooker. Maybe we need to book a bigger room and allow everybody a little bit of breathing space. If this is something where you want some blue sky thinking, have you given people enough creative space? Is there enough natural light? If you want them flip charting, is there enough space to stick flip charts up? You have to have pre-thought about these things ahead of time. A good facilitator also makes sure they have access to the room ahead of the scheduled start time so that they can get the space set up and ready to go and commence on time. Part of the great space and place is using it to its maximum ability, which also means holding people to account and to the agenda timing. Now, the fifth and potentially most important of all of these is presence. A great conversation leader or workshop facilitator is fully present in the room, in the moment, and they allow for an environment for everybody else to be as well. They're in the conversation, they are focused, they are actively listening, they are observing how interactions are playing out. They're aware of the nuances and the vibe in the room and how people are reacting and responding. They're also allowing the participants to have that same experience. So if you're inviting people into the room and you want to have a creative ideation session, but they've just walked in from a budget meeting, that they're not in the right frame of mind. So a great facilitator will recognize that and set up a conversation to allow people to step into the right space, understand the mindset that they need for this room, allow them to put that hat on, and then become an active and productive participant in the conversation. So it's not just the facilitator's presence, it's everybody's presence. And how are you holding people to account with their presence? Sometimes you need to be really clear up front. What are the rules of engagement in this particular session? Are we going to put our phones on silent and put them face down because we're going to focus? Are we allowing people to take calls if they step out of the room? These are very specific examples, but there's some of the things you need to think through. So I'm not sure if you noticed, but I had 5 tips for you today. They all happen to start with the letter P. We had purpose, path, people, place, and presence. With that in mind, I have put together, and I've been using it for a couple of years now, what I call the 5P planning tool. So it is just a template that I use to help myself prepare when I'm facilitating a conversation, to make sure I am setting it up right from the start, that I am as planned and prepped as I can be, and that I'm getting the most out of the time I have with these participants to get to the right outcome. I've been using this tool for a couple of years now, and I find it quite effective. I teach it inside my Visual Language for Business course, and so others are giving me feedback that it is effective. And I'm giving it to you today for free. If you would like a copy of it, you can find the link in the show notes below. I'd love for you to grab it, play around with it, test it out, and then tell me what you think. Give me some feedback. Did it work for you? How would you amend it, change it, or improve it? I'd really love to hear. Workshop facilitators, conversation leaders. This is your Workshop Wingman signing off for now. Now get out there. Go and make your mark. I feel the need to take these sunnies off. Attention workshop. No. Attention. It's not even funny. It's not even relevant anymore. No one's watching this movie. Okay. Workshop facilitators, conversation leaders. I feel the need. Oh, just take this honey. Oh. Go again. Let's go with that.